I want that one.
Yeah, I just got it. It was on sale.
It was on sale, so
It
you
was
can justify it.
on sale, so I could justify. It was like 57% off.
Well, how about that? Even over 50, then you can really
Right?
justify
It's
it.
not what you spent, it's what you save.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Fantastic. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll get going here. We're just waiting for some additional people to roll in. We'll get going here in just a few seconds. For those of you women or men, I guess, on the call today, if you're a coach fanatic like Angel and I are, that's what we were just talking about, the latest bag. So if you have any input on that and what you love, pop it into the chat with us.
Coach is quite popular with the men too. I'm just
I
saying.
know, I guess that's true. I have bought
Yes.
more than one men's bag because I prefer the Coach men's bags sometimes over the women's ones. So I
That's
guess that
right.
is true.
They're very
Yeah.
popular. It's becoming quite the revival in that brand, actually. So I was just
Yeah.
watching, they were doing the filming of the Devil Wears Prada 2, and Coach bags are all in it again. So
Nice. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get going here today. Thank you for joining us for the second
absolutely.
episode of the latest in Mortgage Today.
My
Um,
pleasure.
yeah, and this is everybody, the one and only Angel Duke, who is the SVP of Product Development from New American Funding. She agreed at the last minute. I got to give you kudos. She is one of my go-to people in our network that she agreed to hop in here at the last minute. We needed to make a change. So I appreciate you so much for doing this today with us, Angel.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I'll always do anything for the Mortgage Collaborative. I
Yeah,
appreciate the invite. Hey, Jeremy. See
yeah,
Jeremy.
exactly. We were just talking, so everybody take notice of New American Funding's new like little logo thing going, or campaign, I guess I would say,
Maybe
going
new
on there.
campaign.
Absolutely love that. That is so genuine. And so I could see you saying that all the time. So I love it that it's a campaign that just everybody would say something like that. So
It is. It's to resonate on, that moment when when somebody realizes, hey, I'm gonna buy a home. And it's that hell yeah moment.
yeah,
And we've all felt it when we had that moment. We've seen people have that moment. So we've built on that. Hell yeah, I'm buying a home. Hell yeah, I work here. That energy, that exuberation that people have at that moment they realize, oh my gosh, my dream is coming true. I'm getting that house. So
I
we've built off of
absolutely
it.
love that. Kudos. Kudos to New American Funding's marketing department or whoever came up with the idea. Usually it's a whole group of people internally, but I absolutely love that. So for those of you who are new, this is an episode, or this is in our episodes for the latest in Mortgage Today. We have a lender member join us to help kind of unpack what's new in mortgage, what's working, what's shifting, and what it means for all of us. This is meant to be an open dialogue. So Jeremy Davis has already been in the chat. You can be in the chat too. Hop into the chat and share your ideas with us, comments, anything like that. It's a space to listen if you just want to listen, exchange ideas, move forward in the industry together. We absolutely positively love it when people have a say in the conversation. So I'm not kidding about the chat. Please drop in there and post things as you want to. And it's a show that we're doing twice a month. So twice a month, you'll see us on Fridays. Let's talk a little bit, Angel, about like the newest things that happened kind of this week.
Yeah.
Little bit of a rate drop. It was announced out that buyer confidence is shakier than it has been because the market is kind of cooling a little bit. Fannie Mae revised their forecast this week. Um, and they came out with a new your buying power and what those numbers are. And I was kind of shocked that medium home prices are at 439, 450 right now. So what do you think about any or all of that going on?
Well, I mean, so personally, I'm not surprised by it.
Me
Um,
either. Yeah.
I don't think many of us really are. I think, we've heard all the economists, don't take anything away from them. They're fabulous. They're brilliant people in a lot of ways. But I don't think any of us that are in the trenches every day are kind of surprised by it, right? I think we kind of saw a lot of this coming. We kind of expected it. You know, we kind of expected some of the non-movement by the feds, right? So I don't think any of us were totally shocked recently on it. I think we may, all be looking a little bit on the housing side and kind of seeing what's going on there. We see some softening in the markets,
Yeah.
and that's, I think it's expected. I think we're all kind of expecting some of that as well, in some of those markets. So, it's an interesting time. I'm not overly surprised by any of it. I'd be interested in the chat. Is anybody surprised by it? So that would be something I would love for anybody to put in the chat. Have you been surprised by anything that you've seen like in the last 30 days going on? Just let us know if you are, and just because I would love to know if anybody got caught off guard by it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think any of it, the only thing that was surprising to me was the median home price being so high. But I guess I should have expected that because home prices, even new housing, has continued to go up, which we'll talk about a little bit
Yeah, we'll
later
talk about it in a minute.
in
Yeah.
this conversation. So, one of the things that I saw this week that I thought was just interesting to kind of look at is like Americans and what if we're mobile or not in
Mhm.
moving and those things. And mobility across the United States has hit a record low, which I think part of that is when COVID happened, I feel like a lot of people moved. They could
Yes.
work remotely, they could go to where they wanted to go. Sometimes now people are calling them back into the office or at least attempting to. And so I feel like that's part of it. I think part of it is people are kind of feeling stuck in their houses, but I would just love to hear like what you've seen related to that and how you've seen that equate into your pipeline of borrowers and things like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. So, I mean, when you have a record high of something, you're obviously going to have that pendulum swing, and you should be expecting that record low, right? For every action, there's a reaction, right? So, if you're going to have record high of people moving, which we absolutely all saw during COVID, and in those 2 or 3 years of that, that happened, then we're obviously going to see a settling of that. People bought those dream homes. People bought that area. They went to where they had wanted to go. They moved towards families or areas that they had always dreamed of being in, and they're going to stay there. I think it's an interesting choice of words that the industry and that the news media, articles are using about people being stuck in homes. I don't know that they're necessarily stuck in those homes versus they found that home and they've decided to stay in that home.
Well, yeah,
Um,
it's the choices.
it's the
That is
choice.
what I mean, that is exactly what was in this article
It
is
is.
stuck. But it's
Mhm.
like it actually people are choosing a
Yes.
different lifestyle. And I know three families in the development that I'm in where parents have moved in to
Yes.
where their kids are and where their grandkids are. And they're in separate houses, but
Yes.
they've moved into this same development so that they can be closer to each other and enjoy the benefits of being in this development easily.
Yes.
And I think during COVID, a lot of that happened. People moved closer to their families and because they could.
Yes, they could. There was a lot of, flexibility in these things. There was an ability to be able to do a lot of movement, as we just said. You could move around states, you could move in the state, you can move out of the state, all these different things. So I think that, the word that people are using, which, may be true in some situations, being stuck, but maybe not, maybe not. Some people
It's the
move.
choices people
Yeah,
are
people moved
making.
into that dream house or they moved into that dream location, and just because they decided not to move up or move down in 3 to 4 years doesn't mean they're necessarily stuck. And I think that that's a different it's a different pendulum again that we're seeing in the market. And I think it's just an adjustment that we have to take. So if we look back in history wise too, not everybody moved as often. Like, our parents and grandparents would buy that house and they'd stay there for generations.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They may have one or two homes in their lifetime versus moving
That's right.
every year and a half to 2 years. It was very different. One of the other things that was in this article is that sellers are hesitating to list homes because of fear of losing their low rate mortgage.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but I have seen more housing site and it's August here and we have already seen kind of a turn a little bit in our weather. at least at nights, that it's already gotten cooler.
Mhm.
So our cycle is very impacted by weather, but I have seen more homes on the market right now than I've probably seen in 3 years around where I
Yeah.
live. So I was kind of surprised by that because I see like more people listing and kind of a weird time of year for us to head into that. I don't know, like what have you seen or experienced around where you're at?
So from a national standpoint, we at New American Funding are in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. So, I mean, we see so many different trends across the United States, so much different weather patterns, obviously, so many different things, big cities, et cetera, small
Yep.
towns. I also read an interesting article, speaking of, read an interesting article just printed 2 days ago, where the Builders Association, National Builders Association, was talking about how new home pricing has actually been below established home pricing recently because there's so many housing builders putting incentives into the new homes that they're putting out, and they're building them smaller. So, and they're saying, well, the average has size of a house is smaller, this a bad thing, etc. I don't know if it's a bad thing. Builders were building these, huge custom homes for so long. Don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing that they're going a few, 100 square feet smaller necessarily to make it
Yeah.
affordable. And then the builders are putting incentives out. So there's incentives to buy down those rates. There's builder forwards that are being done, all of these types of things. So right now there's an odd little paradigm shift in there in some markets where new home pricing is actually lower than existing home pricing. And I think that that's a little bit of the catch up that needs to be done of some of these sellers that are out there that still think that their house pricing needs to be at the pandemic pricing levels. It's
Right.
time for them to do a little bit of an adjustment and realize, hey, you still have appreciated in value, but not necessarily at the top of the line that you're listing it as, and you might need to be a little bit more realistic. And I think that's why we're seeing so many of these houses sitting for 60 days or longer, having to have pricing adjustments, and also sitting on that market in this time period where they normally wouldn't.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. As a matter of fact, there is a unit that is just like the unit that I live in for sale right now. It happens to be right next door to me. And I'm shocked. I'm shocked though, not because it's high. I'm shocked at what it's listed at right now because he cannot be leaving here making any money based on when I knew he bought.
Right.
And I don't know what the situation is, but I was kind of shocked by it coming in that way. So everybody knows I love, the terms that people use in the industry. And this one's been out there for a long time, but it's been dubbed housing shrinkflation.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's not the only space that that term has been used in. It's the same thing in the grocery world where you
Right.
go in and a package of food is however many ounces less than what it was, but yet the cost is, way more. It's that kind of topic. So the article that I read, new single family homes 11% smaller
Mm-hmm.
than what they were in before, but still 2,400 square feet.
Right.
I
There's
mean,
still decent sized houses. I mean, we're not talking about 1,100 square feet or 800 square feet houses. We're not talking about tiny homes.
go live in a different country
That's right.
for a
That's
little
right.
while. And
I,
and people would be
I,
shocked to be moving into a house that's
yeah.
2,400 square
I think
feet.
our perspective got off for a little bit there.
Exactly. Exactly. The one thing that has increased is the price per square footage. And
Hmm.
I think that's probably because of a lot of things that all of us know about already, which is the cost to build,
Hmm.
and some of those things. I haven't seen in the market that I live in construction worker shortages as much as in the past. And I don't know if other people have, but the one thing that I thought was super funny about this article, I'm a space person. I love my space. I'm in about 2,000 square feet, much smaller space than what I have been in the past. And I do enjoy space because it's only me and Keegan half the time. But the one thing that builders were eliminating that was noted in this article that I just thought was kind of funny is they were eliminating waste. They called it wasted space. It
Hmm.
was hallways.
Yes.
They're eliminating
Hallways are going
hallways.
away. Hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, I like some of that openness in space. But I do think that that's very common. Like I said, other places squeeze a lot more of living into a much smaller space than what we do in the United States.
That is true. So, I mean, we have an awful lot of that extra little buffer space in the United States, those hallways, those areas, extra closets, all those types of things. And that's not common in other builds in other countries. So I
Yeah.
can easily see why they would get rid of those pieces.
Yeah. The other thing that I noted in this article that I thought was interesting just to think about a little bit is that it's very much been pitched out there that borrowers are delivering less um, to people for the price. But I kind of feel like it's almost like I feel like there's a change in how we live that I think that they're delivering more of what the consumer wants in some places. That I feel like a lot of new construction places have a lot of amenities
They do.
and people are living differently. So they're choosing to deliver maybe on the amenities side and have the space still be really nice, but maybe smaller. And I feel like that's kind of a trend that people are maybe moving towards with this whole think about how you want to live your life better. It's like looking more at the environment that they live in versus just the home itself.
I think there's a lot of that. So, I mean, everybody lives their life differently and stuff, but there's a lot of minimalistic type of approach on things, not as much stuff, more of value of life and experiences. And like you said, the amenities around you versus what you're putting in your home, but rather the experiences around your life and the experiences around your day to day. So there's a lot of that around, which is again, everybody lives theirs differently. I like to have my Coach bags, whatever. But so I think that there's, the builders are looking at that and they're saying, what is the next generation of buyers wanting? What is that next? And it's not necessarily in age, but even the step down generation, what is it they're wanting?
Right.
So if it's a step down generation or the next generation of first time home buyers or second time home buyers, what is it that they're actually looking for? Is it that they want these big custom homes, or is it that they would rather have, a solid lesser home with more amenities around it, more interaction with their neighbors and stuff. Things that sometimes we've lost in some of the neighborhoods
Agree.
because they were so vast and so spread out and so grand that you lost touch with neighbors. And a lot of people deliberately that I've talked to are moving towards those neighborhoods that have more community pieces, more functionality between them, more interaction together because people have lost that touch.
I completely 100% agree with that. So in my development, the pool is the social center of it, and it's literally across the street from me, is the social center, I feel like, of the whole thing. You learn things while you're at the pool, you find out other things. And when I was there this last week, people were talking about the type of housing that I live in. We're on one corner of the development of really large homes. We're not that. We're more like urban living in a townhome that's 4 stories high with a private deck on the top of it. And so it's unique housing for here in Minnesota
Right.
specifically. And people were talking at the pool and they're like, well, the only people that could live in those places are young people. The only people that could live there are young people. And because of the stairs,
Just because of the
because of the
stairs.
stairs. And I'm like, I live there. I am not young. I mean, and I love it.
Oh,
So I think that, some of those stereotypes of what people have thought of before just don't
they
apply
don't. They don't apply
anymore.
anymore. They
Yeah.
don't.
So I think that was interesting. One of the other articles that was put out, oh, here we've got something in the chat. Thanks, Christy. Do you think consumers are driving what builders build and wanting certain offerings and amenities, or are the builders pushing the narrative?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both, if you want to be honest, Christy. I think there's a little bit of both.
Yeah,
I think some builders are building it and people, if you build it, they will come. I think there's a little bit of that. And I do think there is some demand from the consumer as well, where they're saying, hey, I really love this house, but you don't have X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to keep looking. And the builders are hearing that. And that they're, they're having better sales in other areas because there are more amenities around it. Amenities have been key. Like if we look at other types of developments, if you look at multifamily developments, for example, amenities are key. So if you're looking
Mhm.
to say what
Sure.
is going to attract that buyer to move out of that multifamily into a single family, how are we going to get them? They're not going to want to give up their pool, and they're not going to want to give up their gym, and they're not going to want to give up their community activities, and they're not going to want to give up those things. So how do you get them into that? That's how you get them into it, by having it in that development, and you have that kind of atmosphere. So I think part of it is being driven by the consumer, the new consumer that have these huge multifamily developments with these huge amount of amenities that didn't used to exist. You didn't have that before. You just had apartment complexes and that was it. And
Yep.
everybody was segmented, and you didn't really know your neighbor too much except for the fact they made too much noise through the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just a completely different thing. So I have the president of the home builder that I'm in actually lives in our development. That's always a really good sign, isn't it? If the
Yes.
president of the home builder is going to live in the development that you live in. And we just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and they specifically built the type of housing that's in the part of the development I'm in because they had a bunch of people come to them and say, why aren't you building something that looks more urban or feels more urban? Or and so they kind of saved this particular part of the development for that, and the whole rest of the development is completely different.
Right.
I mean, because he asked me, why did you move where you moved? And I said, I've always wanted to live in, I don't want to be in suburbia. I am in suburbia because of a kid, but I would prefer to be more city. And that's exactly why they built this particular section of our development. Now, they didn't risk it and build a whole huge
Right.
development that way.
Right.
So I think it was a test for them to kind of see how it worked. But I agree with you. I think it could be both. So Christy shared with us, she lives in Charlotte. Oh, Christy, that is where I would love to live. But you have had a huge population surge. I can't remember. At one point, it was something like 200 people a day moving into Charlotte.
Yeah.
It was huge. Builders have less land, but they're trying to fit the same number of homes into the developments. But yeah, it's the same sort of a shrinkflation type of thing,
Yeah.
like selling the 4 pound bag of sugar, but charging the 5 pound price. I love that.
So many places have gone through that. Austin's gone through it, Charlotte's gone through it, Nashville's gone through it. So many places have gone through it with that influx of people. And there's a good and a bad with it, right?
Yeah. Christy, someday I would like to end up in Charlotte. It's one of my favorite cities in the United States. So pop in there if you love living there. Share with me. Share with me if I'm thinking the
Charlotte's
right way. Yeah,
beautiful.
I
Charlotte is
am Charlotte.
beautiful.
Yeah. Um, Meh. Oh, we're gonna have to talk. Before I make any move, I'm gonna reach out to you. I'm gonna reach out to you because things can change when you have those big surges in for sure. Home values declined year over year in 25 of the 50 largest US metropolitan areas. Well, like we were talking before, I don't think that, I think that it has to adjust at some point, right?
It
We,
will.
we saw those huge highs, and I feel like now we're kind of like things are, at least where I live, coming down a little bit. Price drops, Tampa, Miami, Orlando,
Hmm.
Austin,
Hmm.
and Dallas. And the only one on that list but Dallas only 3.9%. That was the only one on that list. Dallas and Texas properties, I feel like they've never done the real highs, they've never done the real lows necessarily. I'm not surprised at all by the bulk of Florida
Yeah.
business in there. I think some of that is the type of housing. I feel like some of the condo properties and things have kind of taken more of a hit recently. And I think that that drives some of that.
Well,
They
a lot
also
of that was supply and demand too. So let's be honest, like, so all those five areas that you just mentioned had huge insurge of, people coming into for many, many years. It started with COVID and continued for many years, even after the initial surge of COVID movement, right? And so a lot of that had supply and demand. It's eventually got to level off. So
yeah,
obviously prices are going up. There's not as many houses. That eventually has tapered out. There's not as many people moving in to those places. Some are starting to leave because They might be like our
Because yeah,
friend over here and say, I'm not so interested anymore. I don't want to be here. There's too many people now. And so some
right,
leaving. So some of that is going on there. And then the opposite, because some of the places that are also on that list are where people have left. So there's
right.
places in California, et cetera, where people have left those areas. And now those places are starting to feel some of that readjustment of the exponential leaving of those. And now they're having to do some adjustments of, okay, hold on, we've had people leave. We don't have as many people coming in. We still have people coming in and we still have people buying and we still have people moving, but it's not as robust and our demand is now not as much. So now we have to have a price adjustment going on. So if you look at all of those areas of those 25 or 50 places that are on that list, and you look at each one that way, you can see the definitive push pull from each one of, hey, this one's suffering because they moved, and this one's suffering because of supply and demand, and now it's tapering off.
Yeah. Yeah. Gone are the days. Do you remember the days in California where they had a property that had an open house and they had like 100 people
Yes.
standing outside on the street waiting and they were throwing in a car or something to buy the house? Those
Hmm.
days are, it's a different
It's
time
totally
period
different now. It's totally,
now
totally
than
different
what it
now.
used to be. On the other side of that, places like Cleveland, Hartford, Louisville, Detroit,
Hmm.
Buffalo. So I would say when I look at that list, I see Midwestern
Hmm.
more, and I also see smaller city environments
Hmm.
and not the really big ones. And I feel like that's some of people choosing, or people choosing, and also maybe more affordability
Yes.
if people are moving into those places. What do you think about that? Do you think that's on track and that's kind of spot on to what's happening in some of those markets?
I would agree. I mean, I think definitely there's people always looking for the affordability. I mean, let's be honest, if you go out and you look for affordability, you're going to see top hits of where's the most affordable places to live in the United States? What's the
Right.
most top, top states is the most affordability, top cities that are the most affordability. It's a hot topic, right? People are still looking. There's still people who are able to be mobile, right? There's people who are ready to move regardless of what's going on, and they're done, and they either want out of Florida and they want out of Charlotte or they want out of Austin or they want out of California, whatever, right? And they're just ready to make that move. They're ready to go to family, with family, maybe away from family,
There
whatever.
is that.
There's that. Whatever it is, and so that's happening, and those affordable places are still, drawing people in, and there's incentives that some of these towns and cities and stuff are doing incentives around that to make it attractive. If you go out and look, there's some incentives to move to these, especially for remote workers. Now, I know there's still the push to bring people into the office in some places, but there's still remote work available out there. And for those remote workers, some of them are picking up some of those incentives and saying, I can work somewhere more affordable. I can pick up this town or this city's affordability. I can get these incentives that they're offering remote work. I can get a nice affordable house and sell this one here and pick up some money that it's appreciated. And maybe I want to live, in the mountains now, or maybe I want to live in not as big of a city anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of things going on there related to that, that people are making those choices. And I think sometimes when people are going to make them come into the office, I feel like the next generation of people is going to choose lifestyle sometimes over job. That if they can move to somewhere that's less expensive and they can work however they want to work, whether that's a remote position or whether it's I'm just going to move into this less expensive environment and have a home and have a lifestyle that I want. I feel like people are just in general making different decisions.
Agreed. Agreed. I think they are. So, I mean, that goes throughout this whole conversation. We talked about, amenities. Again, that goes to lifestyle, location, that goes to lifestyle, the size of the house, again, to lifestyle. Like less is more in some places, for some people. Again, they're looking for, they're not looking at the tchotchkes of our parents of the 80s, right? They don't
Right.
want to inherit all of these things. They don't want it all. So, I mean, they're looking at these things
So
and saying
true.
experiences more than things in a lot of places and a lot of people. And you have to look at that difference in those that persona and what's going on. And again, a lot of people, even as they get older, are looking at it too and going, I don't need all this. Like, I don't need all this. I want to live and I want to do, and I want to, as be mobile as I can in my latter part of my years and
Yeah.
travel and do. It's time to downsize and just, get rid of the house and take the equity out of it and live.
Yeah.
That's why I go back to it's odd that we use the word that they're chained or they're stuck. There's choices that are being made, and some people are making the choices to stay, and some people are making the choices to say, no, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, some of that language, I'm always curious about the language that is used as well, because I feel like it just kind of, it almost promotes that we're in this situation in the mortgage industry because of a negative, right?
Yes.
And I don't necessarily love that, but I do tend to read it how, initially how the article states it, which sometimes that is just to draw you in.
I think it's important for all of us, especially in the industry, for us to help change that narrative, because the narrative goes on, and that's all the people hear. It's just like the thing about rates. Rates are high, rates are high, rates are high.
Right.
Yes, rates are higher than they were in other times, but they are way lower than they were in other times
Yeah.
too. Yes, prices are higher. Absolutely. And guess what? They're going to continue to be higher.
Yeah.
Prices are always going to go higher. Prices are higher than when I bought my first house.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
always going to be higher. So we have to work as an industry and as people in the industry to always change that narrative and educate, because the narratives, if you look back at every article and back there and for our entire careers in these unprecedented times. Oh my God, we've been in unprecedented times for the 32 years I've been in the mortgage industry.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. It is kind of funny when you look back at that, at some of those things. It definitely, we see it and we see the differences. What sometimes concerns me is when you watch it in the media, some of the people, if people don't work in the mortgage space, they do not have the perspective that many of us probably on this call have. They only have the perspective of what they see in the
Mhm.
media. And it's almost like, are you trying to get people to buy into that?
Yeah, it's
I guess.
fear mongering almost. It's fear mongering, and it's tantalizing headlines, and it's clickbait now, and whatever else names you want
Yeah.
to put on it. But
Yeah.
it's always these unprecedented times.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end of our time. And I
Already.
mean, it like that just went by. I absolutely love it hopping on here and talking with a friend about what is going on in the industry. I so appreciate you. I know that everybody on the call does as well. Thank you so much for doing
Anytime.
this with us today. Always great conversation with you. And I look forward to seeing you really soon
See you in Boston.
in Boston
That's
in
right. Hope to see everybody in Boston.
September 14th to 16th, you guys. If you have not registered and are planning on joining us, please either reach out to one of us right away so we can help you get situated, or log on to our website, click on the link, and get yourself there with us in Boston. I will see you then. Appreciate you so much, Angel. Have a great
Have a
weekend.
great weekend, everybody. Bye.
Bye.